Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Becker, and I'm the Director of Education Abroad here at Texas Women's University. And I'm going to let my lovely co-host introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Nausheen Qureshi. I am the Global Advisor or Graduate Assistant for International Affairs, and I have the lovely opportunity of meeting with our students and helping them as they prepare to study abroad.
So today we're going to talk more about education abroad scholarships, and it's our 3-2-1 presentation. So we're going to give you some tips on how you can share your most authentic story and hopefully be successful in scoring an education abroad scholarship. So we've got some details that we'll share with you all. Please feel free to put anything in the chat, and we'll be able to answer questions either as we go or towards the end. Also, we are obviously recording this presentation, and we will make the slides and the presentation available in the coming days on our website, and we'll send that information out. Okay, Nausheen, any other housekeeping items before we take this for a spin?
I think you got them all.
All right, perfect. Okay, so before we really get into the meat of our conversation today, we just thought it would be a good idea quickly to give you all a brief overview of why does education abroad exist, and how does it support TWU. So if you got really curious and you looked at TWU's mission, you will see that actually global engagement is front and center in our mission. So Texas Women's University cultivates engaged leaders and global citizens through the programs that it offers and through its historical strengths. And so education abroad is one way that supports that mission. We also wanted to give you guys just a quick overview of scholarships. Nausheen?
Okay, so if you haven't already, our website has a great database for all the different kinds of scholarships, and we're going to just hit a few different categories. So one of the main ones that we really ask and tell students to look at is the TW Education Abroad Scholarship, because that one is an in-house scholarship. So definitely we tell you start over there. That one is through our office, has a very simple application through the same portal that you will use when you are signing up for a program, and has a very small application process, very simple, very quick turnaround time, right? Through our office, like I said. The other scholarships are your affiliate or program provider scholarships. So those are the providers that you are going to be applying through to actually study abroad with. They also offer scholarships. Then we have a list of general scholarships that are open to really anybody. Sometimes they have specific criteria, sometimes they don't. And so you can, again, find those on our website. Then we have location specific ones. So there you can find UK specific ones or Asia specific programmed ones. But again, these are all broken apart on our scholarships website. And then other options here we've listed are the ones where if you found, funding of another source that maybe wasn't study abroad specific, but if it didn't limit you in terms of where you had to use the money, if it said you didn't have to use it at your host institution or in the US, you could use it for your study abroad trip. So again, that's a great place to start off, is our website. And then as you come across criterias or questions, feel free to run them by us or the institution that is, hosting that pool of money.
So one thing I want to make mention too is that one way that our students amass more money, one scholarship probably isn't going to cover all the costs. A lot of our students are applying to multiple scholarships and stacking scholarships, and that is something that you can do when you're looking at both internal and external sources. Go ahead, Nausheen.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Carolyn, because that's, I can tell you from personal experience, when I studied abroad, that's really what I did, right? Is I started with internal first. So started with like your TWU one and then worked my way out to the more general or the more like the bigger the pool it was, that's how I worked, because the smaller the pool, the greater your chances of winning that amount of money. So and then you kind of just rank in terms of like deadlines or things like that. So that really helps if you kind of are like, okay, well, these are a lot of scholarships. How do I decide which ones I want to apply for? And then one thing we want you to kind of we're going to talk a little bit more about, but we want you to really think about as you're getting ready to apply for these scholarships is what is the purpose of these scholarships, right? Their hope is to get underrepresented students into these education abroad programs, right? So within higher education, underrepresented can mean several different things, and Carolyn will talk to you more about that.
So we wanted to start off by giving you that overarching idea of why these scholarships exist. I mean, a lot of organizations aren't necessarily doing this out of the goodness of their heart. It's because they have a vested interest in seeing underrepresented students abroad. So what does underrepresented mean? Well, it can mean different things to different people. Context is everything. So we wanted to give you all some context, because it's going to help you when you are considering how to write your essays and what kind of language to use, and also help you think about how to tell your story. So here are some students abroad by the numbers. We're going to look at national data. So just some broad things for you to think about right now. Underrepresented can look different in different contexts. So some of the national data shows you what underrepresented looks like by race and ethnicity. So you can see this is the most recent data that students, and I can see there's a typo. Oh, no, there's not. They're showing you the difference. Students in 2019, 2020 in that academic year, still the vast majority of students that are studying abroad, the race ethnicity would be Caucasian, right? White students. So that's one way to consider, well, those students that don't identify as Caucasian or white, that's one underrepresented group, but it's not the only underrepresented group nationally. This other slide shows what the selected fields of study are abroad. So you can look and see, well, what's my major? And maybe that's an underrepresented category. So you can see the largest group of majors of students that are studying abroad fall into the business realm, while engineering and health professions, and I'm going to say health professions again, because we know that TWU students, a lot of students are pursuing some kind of health profession. Those are still ranked pretty low. So that could be also one way to think about underrepresented students. Another way still is thinking about where you're studying abroad. So the leading destinations, because that could be underrepresented as well. So you can still see from the latest data that Europe still hosted more than half of all US students studying abroad. Now, what we're showing you, that doesn't mean that you're not a good candidate for scholarships if those three things are not, you're not underrepresented in those three areas, but it's just one way to think about what does underrepresented mean. Maybe you are studying in South America, maybe you're studying in Asia. That's a different way for you to think of, a few percentage or small percentage of students are studying abroad in those areas. So maybe that's the story you want to tell. This is all information to, again, help you think about, what might be something about me that I want to highlight, or about my program or the location that might be interesting to the organizations that are providing that scholarship. So this is all the national data, right, on a macro level. Let's think more about here at TWU. So here are some things that we know about our students. We are number 4 in the nation for ethnic diversity. US News and World Report has given us that distinction. So we know that there's probably quite a few students that are falling into that race and ethnicity demographic that would be considered underrepresented. We're number 1 in Texas for students with children. So even though that's not national data that's being gathered, that's an underrepresented group, students who are parents. We know that 70% of TWU students are receiving some sort of need-based financial aid. So there's a socioeconomic need that would be worth a story to tell. 49% of students here are first-generation college students, and that is certainly an underrepresented group abroad. Our average age student is 28. Absolutely. Traditional age students are going to be a higher percentage that are going abroad. So if you're not in that like 18 to 22 range, that might be something worth considering in terms of, am I meeting an underrepresented category? Some other categories to think about: veterans, first generation Americans, LGBTQ+, all of those things that would be probably considered an underrepresented or historically excluded from study abroad, from education abroad. That might be something to keep in the back of your mind if you're willing to, if you identify in one of those areas and you're willing to be vulnerable and share that. So we have sent students everywhere who've done all sorts of different things. And we just threw up a couple pictures because TWU is one of the most beautifully diverse places. We have such a great student population. Our students are studying very unique things, going to unique places. We all look different and have multiple identities. And all of these students that are on here, they were able to get some scholarships for the things that they were doing. So this is just something to help normalize who our students are and what they've been able to accomplish. So now we're going to get to the main event. We wanted to give you all some kind of data and a picture to start wrapping your brain around who might I be, or who might be willing to fund me, and what kind of story might I want to tell. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Nausheen.
Okay, so let's talk about the key three. First one here is we're going to talk about the common essay themes, right? So across the board, doesn't really matter which, organization you're applying through, which fund it is, you're going to see a lot of commonality between the types of questions you're going to be answering. So if you start using that picture that Carolyn has helped you kind of think about in terms of figuring out what it is, the story that you're going to say, that will help you answer a lot of these essay questions, right? Whether it's talking about the previous challenges you've been able to overcome, or it's talking about why that program that you're applying to is kind of special for you. So you want to be able to link those programs with your unique story and kind of communicating a plan of how you're going to be engaging what you've learned once you return back home. The second thing we want you to think about is the competition. So who are the people you are competing against, right? The other people applying to these scholarships are students who are planning to study abroad, right? So they have experienced that transition to college. They are going through similar challenges probably in terms of the college life experience that you might be. You want to, that's really where you want to highlight the underrepresented, student aspect of your life or the unique challenges you have overcome. You kind of also want to avoid those sweeping generalizations like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, or it's going to be, transformational for me, unless you really follow that up with specific examples of why, because study abroad is a once in a lifetime opportunity for probably any student who goes, right? You want to be able to really link that to the program and to your life. And then, of course, you really want to get to know who is reading those essays. So what is the audience that is going to be, going through all of the hard work you put into this? They're going to be usually higher education professionals. They're going to have lots of different experience and, biases on their side. Usually they're volunteers, so that means they're going through lots of applications. That's why it's really important to keep what you're saying to the point. Not saying you don't, make it beautiful and flourish it, but at the same time, don't make them have to dig for your answers, because they won't, right? We want to make sure you get straight to the point about what it is that sets you apart and how this program is going to allow you to have the experience that you really need to make a difference in your career or your future or your goals.
And, Nausheen, you make such a good point, because when you said, varying levels of experience, is that you have to assume that the person reading your scholarship doesn't know anything about you, TWU, or your program, so you've got to really think about, like, this person may have never set foot in Texas. They might hear Texas Women's University and think that is a single gender private small university, and we're none of those things. I'm not saying that you've got to go in and describe TWU, but Don't assume or don't take it for granted that they know what it means if you say that you are a Terry Scholar. Well, they might not have ever heard of that organization. So just really make sure you're explaining succinctly to your audience about the things that you're describing.
Correct. Okay.
All right, it is my turn. So that was our 3. Our 2 is this 2-step process to success. Okay, so tell your story. So think about who you are. You want this to be authentic and original. So something that Nausheen talked about earlier is, that your competition, everybody has gone through that college transition process or transformational process of, oh, when I went to college, I didn't know anybody. And I was out of my comfort zone. Now, that's a great story. I'm not saying you shouldn't tell that story, but realize that a lot of people will be telling that story. So if there's a question prompt that's asking you, like, tell us about a time that was challenging, you might want to dig a little bit deeper or go beyond the, I didn't know anybody. Why more specifically was this challenging? Maybe you never left home before, or maybe you're a first generation college student. Maybe you are, you never shared a room, or you didn't have siblings, or, describe that a little bit more than just that surface level, because that's what a lot of people will be doing, and you need yours to stand out. But think about what's an authentic, original story. What's your story? You may need to be a little bit vulnerable. Actually, some of the best essays, and I've read for many, many, many of these national scholarships, many of the best ones are the students who are really ready to be vulnerable, which is very hard to do because you're giving a piece of yourself up on that paper. But when you're vulnerable, you're able to, I think, be a little bit more authentic and share a little bit of yourself. And my boss likes to say, no risk it, no biscuit. And that's, it is a risk, but there comes with a good reward if you're willing to be vulnerable. So say it loud and say it proud. So Nausheen said this, that these reviewers may be reading 80 plus different scholarship applications. So don't play hide and seek. You really need that information to be front and center. This is a time to be honest, not modest. I mean, the humble brag is really hard to do, but this is a time for you to really share all the fantastic things about you and be very confident about that. If you are, a Dean's List recipient, or, you've done really well on certain things, or maybe you received an award, this is a time to talk about it. We're going to show you some real examples to help you guys get this picture a little bit more concrete. So all of these examples are from TW students who won awards, who won national competitive awards. So this is, I think, a really great one of this first point. I am a first generation, non-traditional 62-year-old student who is a junior at TW. I mean, that student, she said it, that was her first sentence. This is something about me. She said a lot in that first sentence. She said a lot about her and a lot about what made her part of like an underrepresented group. Here's some vulnerability. She's talking about struggles that she had with poverty and homelessness and divorce and no education. She's willing to be vulnerable. She's talking about her family upbringing. It wasn't difficult, but she did such a beautiful job with this essay. Another student, doesn't always have to be, again, we're looking at underrepresented in a broad sense. This student came from a lens of, my major's not represented. This is a dance student. And she said, there's not classes offered that specifically explore dance performance theory and techniques. That doesn't exist at TWU. The program I'm wanting to do has a more in-depth opportunity for research and development of these techniques. So again, she's telling her story by using the lens of my major is not one that's abroad, and there's a gap here at TWU. I can't get these classes, but I can have this experience abroad. So number 2 on our 2-step to success is describe and articulate. And this seems like it should be of course, no duh, but it's actually an area where a lot of students fall short. This fully describe your program and be specific. This seems like it's probably the easiest thing to do, and it's probably the #1 thing students don't do well. Talk about your program. You have to imagine that the person that's reading this has no idea what studying abroad even means. Talk about the things that make sense. What does your housing look like? Are you in an apartment? Are you in a homestay? Did you get a choice? Maybe that's why you chose that program, because you wanted to learn Spanish and you're going to live in a homestay. Talk about classes if that makes sense. Are you taking classes that are helping you achieve a goal? What other activities are happening? Think about the unique aspects of your program that make sense with your story and why you chose that program. Draw clear links between yourself and this program. Think about your academic, your personal and professional goals. You could have studied abroad anywhere. Why did you choose Costa Rica? Why did you choose South Africa? You could have done anything, but you chose that location for a specific reason. This is the time to talk about it. And then do some research and connect the dots. If you can figure out just some kind of a soundbite that makes sense, that connects the location to your academic, personal, and professional goals, it will go a long way. So we're going to give you some examples. I'm sorry, we already talked about highlight the unique programmatic aspects. So some examples. This student is a human resource major. We already know that business majors, not an underrepresented group. She's also going to Barcelona. Location-wise, not an underrepresented location. But here's what she does really well. She found something notable that makes sense and connects her major with her location and explains why she chose Barcelona. So she's saying in 2018, Barcelona was ranked within the top 30 cities globally with a strong ability to attract and support female entrepreneurs. Later on in her essay, she talks about her desire to start her own business. The business courses I will take at the university she's going to be studying at will count toward my degree. So she's talking about how this also impacts her degree. So there's different ways to go about this, but she did a really good job connecting the dots. So this student talking about courses. So she's going to London. London, probably one of the #1 top study abroad destinations. So not one that you would use for a lens of an underrepresented area.
Carolyn, I didn't see your screen shift. Still
Thank you. Is it, hold on, here we go. Is this working?
It's still on the human resource one.
Well, I'm just going to say this, so it might be frozen. No worries. So this student, unless it's going now.
No, do you want to unshare and share, or?
Yeah, we'll try that. And then,
Okay.
this is technology, so no worries. Let's try one more time. Where is my Zoom? Sometimes this happens, right? But that's okay. Except now I can't find my Zoom screen. Okay, but you know what? That's all right, because I think my computer's frozen. So I'm just going to talk and that's fine. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So unfortunately, my computer has frozen, but that's all right. So this student in this example, she's saying, I chose this program in London. She's a health science student. She's going to take nanotechnology and medicine courses and nerve injury treatment. So she's in a medicine, science, and engineering program, and she's taking this at a university that's partnered with the London Center for Technology. So she's describing, hey, I'm a health science major. I'm taking these really like smarty pants classes that this university offers. And I couldn't have done that at TWU, or really it'd be pretty hard to have done that really anywhere in the US. And then she does a second thing. She says, I've chosen a homestay. And the reason I chose the homestay is that I get the rare chance to explore benefits and pitfalls between our healthcare systems, because I can converse with users, with users of state funding programs. So she's saying, the people in my homestay, I'm going to ask them about their healthcare and the pros and cons of that. She did a really, really good job of saying a lot about her program and herself and describing the need in that moment. I think, nope, it's still frozen. Okay. So here's our one last thing, so that we did our 3, which was, our key 3, our 2-step to success, and now our one last thing. And our one last thing is really to review and revise. Nausheen, do you want to talk about this a little bit more?
Yes, and I'm going to share the link for the right site in the chat. So that I just posted that in there for everyone to go directly there. It's definitely to revise, right? Review and revise what you have written. Use the resources you have. Don't let yourself be the only one who looks at those essays and those applications. We are happy to help, but at the end of the day, we are not the English and grammar professionals. And so the right site is a great resource here at TWU. I just put the link for them in the chat, and their hours and everything are listed on there. And Carolyn has done an awesome job of actually preparing them about like what the scholarship applications look like and what we are working towards with our students, so that you guys have the best chance of, you know, being competitive for them. And then the right site will help tailor and adjust and, you know, grammatically do all of the fanciness needed to make sure your essays look great for that. We do have one question in the chat, Carolyn.
But I can't actually, I can see nothing in my.
Okay, perfect. I can say
So,
it to you.
great, yes.
Yes. So the question we have is, how many people can be chosen for scholarships?
Oh, this is such a good question.
Yes.
So, you know, many of these scholarships actually have multiple winners. So the TW Education Abroad Scholarship here, we try to award the most amount of students some money. So, I mean, that's depends on how many people apply, but we have about $90,000 to $100,000 every year in scholarship funding. So we try to give the most amount of students money. Big scholarships, some of the big scholarships are the Fund for Education Abroad and the Gilman Scholarship. Those award multiple students. There are some that are a little bit more competitive and they might only have one. Those tend to be like very private organizations, and they'll say it's one finalist.
Yeah.
Even the affiliated providers, while they might have one winner per category, they'll have multiple scholarships available. So that is a good question. It varies quite a bit. Is there any other questions, Nausheen?
That's the only one I see for now. But if anybody else wants to put their questions in the chat, or if you want to unmute and ask your question, we're a small enough group, please feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, so something I'll share because I can't see people. So
no worries.
You have to tell me when to stop talking.
Okay.
But here's some other things that you can think of. So if you are thinking, I'm going to be studying abroad for the summer, this coming summer, summer 2022. Over the winter break, that is an excellent time to start writing your essays. Most scholarships are due this semester before you go abroad. For summer, a lot of them are going to be due January through March. For fall, that could be true for fall, could be January through March or even April. For spring, typically it's September through October, some in November. So it's usually a full semester, or it's the semester ahead of time where you can apply. Some scholarships have early applications. So our scholarship, you can apply a full year in advance. The Gilman you can apply early for as well. And then, there was another thing that I was thinking about with applications. That you should be able to see the you should be able to see the essay questions, even if the portal isn't open or they're not accepting applications. Like, get the question and start thinking about what that question might look like.
One thing to add to what you were just saying, Carolyn, also a good reason to start early is because a lot of them will require like recommendation letters. And so if you've, I don't know of any professor who likes being asked to write a recommendation letter at the last moment. So the sooner you are able to even just take a look and be like, okay, well, I know I want to apply for like the Gilman or for one of these other competitive scholarships. Even if you don't have access to the application portal or whatever it is just yet, you can kind of go ahead and prep your professors and be like, hey, this is coming up and I would like for you to be able to write me a recommendation letter once we're ready. They almost always appreciate the heads up. And once you have access to the exact, process of how to request that letter or how long it's going to be or any of those details, they'll be much nicer and much more willing to get that written for you.
So, you bring up some good points, Nausheen, that I want to expand on a little bit more, is that with your letters of recommendation, It's always best if you can get those from an academic source who knows you well, who can talk about you as a student, your ability to be successful. Maybe they've seen you do some group work. You can certainly use an advisor, an education abroad advisor, sure, but usually the strongest letters of recommendation come from faculty, or if you have an on-campus job, or somebody, if you have an off-campus job, but they're familiar with your integrity and your hard work and your persistence. Somebody who knows you well and who can give you a letter of recommendation that's not canned, but can really talk about your personality and your attributes and what would make you a strong candidate, which again is your ability to connect and tell your story to also that recommender. This is why I'm going abroad and what I'm doing. But remember, it's like a study or an education abroad experience. So you want somebody who can also talk very strongly about your ability to be academically successful while you're in a new culture and adjusting and got all these things going on. So that's pretty essential. Another question that has come up before is about grades. Now, every scholarship is going to have its own eligibility requirement. Some will have GPA requirements, some might not. Some GPA requirements will be higher than others. If you are a student that, maybe you didn't do so hot the first time around and now you're back and you're trying to dig out of a GPA hole, think about your essays as also a kind of like a cover letter. This is a great opportunity for you to express, I went to college and I wasn't prepared, or I had all these things going on and I didn't do well. My life is different. I'm different. The way that I'm thinking about things is different. Obviously don't just say different, explain what that means, but use your essays as an opportunity to explain any kind of GPA discrepancy. Like, I'm really proud of my last semester because I made, a B average, and the first time I went to college, it was a D or C, that's okay for you to use that. It's not always GPA is what people are looking for. Any other questions? Okay, I feel like we talked a lot. There's a lot of information on our website. Nausheen, will you pop in just the abroad.twu.edu?
I have, yes. I put that link in as well.
Perfect. So you'll be able to navigate to the scholarships portion of that page from there. And there you will find a listing. It's not a holistic listing, but we tried to put some of the more popular scholarships, certainly ones that students have gotten here from TWU. And then also there is a guide on there that says in written form a lot of the information we've shared with you today about things to consider, but we will also share this this presentation on this website so that everybody can see it. Please reach out to us. We can help you identify scholarships or help you think about which ones might work best for you, because it can also be a little overwhelming. And then last but not least, I wanted to make mention of, there is like an other funding sources tab on there. Make sure you check that out. It's not about scholarships, but it's other creative ways for you to think about funding outside of scholarships. Nausheen, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think we've covered a lot today and definitely a lot of things to think about. I'm also just putting our email address in the chat box. So if you think of something later and you're like, oh, I really wish I'd asked that, please send us an email and we'll get back with you.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. I hope this has been helpful. We're happy to help you as much as we can. We want to see you be successful in applying for scholarships. So please let us know what we can do to support you. Nausheen, I'm going to have you stop the recording when you're at a place to do that, because I have no control.